So which is the best category, multicap or flexicap? What if you had to do an SIP? Is there a better category? What if you have to do a lump sum? Which is better? If you have these questions and have never been able to understand the difference, then this video is for you. I want to break it up into SIP and lump sum investing, and I'm going to show you what is the difference, major difference between these two categories, and where you should invest as an investor. Which of these two gives you more predictability? Which of these two will give you more peace and good sleep at night? That's what we will cover in this video. Hi, I am Franky Fernandes. I'm the founder of Harmony and Money. It's a community to help couples grow their wealth and also their relationship when they work as a team. I'm a certified financial planner, a certified marriage coach, and an executive coach. And this video, I want to give you insights so that you can make the right decision. So let's get into today's interesting video. So what we will do in this video are three things. First, we'll understand what is the basic difference between a multi-cap and a flexi-cap. Then we will compare SIPs. SIPs for the last 10 years in multi-cap and flexi-cap. We'll look at one example each, and we'll compare them and see how they look. Which one gives more returns, which one has higher volatility, and what should be your decision as an investor. And finally, we will also see what if you had invested a lump sum in the last 10, 15, 20 years? Which one is the winner, right? So let's first begin with the definition of flexicap. What is a flexicap? Now, flexicap are funds, according to SEBI's definition, where 65% of the investment, that means out of 100% corpus, 65% should be invested in equity and equity related investments. There is no cap. How much should be in large cap? How much should be in mid cap? How much should be in small cap? That is purely at the discretion of the fund managers. Now, when we come to multi-caps, there is a difference. Multi-caps must invest 75% into equity and equity related products. And 25% should be in large caps, 25% should be in mid cap, and 25% should be in small cap. So here is the difference. Flexi cap is actually flexible, depends on the fund manager, but here the allocation is decided by SEBI. Yes, in the large cap, mid cap, small cap, there is no restriction. The fund manager can invest into any of the securities. Whereas in flexi cap, the fund manager decides the allocation and also the securities. So this is the big difference between these two. But if you really look at the allocation of the companies within a flexi cap, most flexi caps are large cap heavy. They could be having 70 to 75% or even more into large caps. And then they use the remaining 30 or 15% into mid and small cap. So I made a video on flexicap. You can watch that video on flexicap. There I've clearly explained there are three clusters. That means there are three different types of fund houses. Depending on probably their investment philosophy, they decide how much they should invest in large caps, mid caps, and small caps. So there are companies like Parag Parikh, HDFC Flexicap. They have a large allocation to large cap companies, and mid cap and small cap less. Whereas if you see Motilal Oswal, probably has less of large caps, or probably percentage is less, and there is more allocation to mid cap and small cap. So there is a difference, and they may change. We don't know, but overall, if you see, it is large cap heavy flexi caps. Whereas in multi caps, there is no choice. Large cap is only 25%, or it could be more. The 25, 25, 25, and the other 25 is depends on the fund manager. Probably they may have more of large caps, or according to the fund manager's philosophy, right? But there is a larger exposure to mid and small caps, and that actually decides the performance and the volatility. So now let's get into the core of this video is comparing the SIPs of multicap and flexicaps. And what do we learn from this? So let's look at the screen. So here is the Excel sheet on the SIPs. So there are these 4 funds which are supposed to be the top funds. Disclaimer here, these are only for illustrative purposes, not recommendations. So I've taken from 15th July to 15th June. So, and here I have got the flexicap. These are the 4 funds, and the investment is 12 lakhs. Now let's do a comparison. And I think that is where it gets interesting, right? So here I have used these 2 funds for multi-cap fund. I have used the ICICI Pru, and here I have used HDFC FlexiCap, right? And here is the SIP investment, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. Every month it keeps increasing. And here is the actual value as on that day. That means the total units multiplied by the NAV is the value. So here is the value. And here, when we reach the bottom here, right, in June, it's 29 lakhs in the multi-cap and 28 lakhs in the flexi-cap. But what is interesting is what happens in between. And I think that is where it gets clearer. That is where it gets clearer who should invest in which fund. And so here is the comparison, right? This is the multi-cap. And so if you see here, the blue is the multi-cap and orange is the flexi-cap. Now, it may be different for different funds. It could be that in another flexi-cap fund, this orange could be higher and multi-cap could be lower. It depends on which fund it is. But the objective is not that. The objective is to show how they appear, how it looks during a bull market and during a bear market. And here, if you see here, the multi-cap has always been higher. They started together here. So for most part, right, till 2020, from 2016 till 2020, they were pretty much the same. But from 2020 till 2024, when the markets were at the peak, you only see that the multi-cap has continued to give high returns. And then what happened? And you see the way they appear here, keeps going up, and here the volatility is less compared to this. See the high jumps, see the highs and the falls. And finally, in 2024, September, if you see here, it fell. And then in 2025, FlexiCap, from there on, FlexiCaps have always been higher. And then now again, after the war, after the escalation has, after the ceasefire and after the agreements between the US and the Iran government, again, the multi-cap is doing well. What does this tell us? Number one, when the markets are well in the bull market, multi-caps do better simply because they have a larger portion of mid caps and small caps. And flexi caps have a larger portion of the large caps. Hence, they do not perform great during bull markets. But when the markets fell here, if you see here, and it gets interesting here, if you see here in 2024, it fell very steeply. And from here on, from 2025, they were pretty much the same. And then here, we see here in September 2025, flexi caps have done well. And again, this is during the war, this period, flexi caps continued to do better. And here is a similar chart, but here's a similar chart, but this is purely the gain and loss, right? So from 2016 till 2026, this is the gain in the multi-cap, and this is the gain or loss in flexi-cap. And if you see a flexi-cap gains over multi-caps, so here if you see the flexi-cap gains over multi-cap, if you see most of the times, it is red. That means most of the times, comparatively, the multi-caps have done better because of the markets were doing well. So somebody who is invested in a flexi-cap will always feel, oh, I missed the rally. But when the markets fall, during this time, actually, flexicaps have covered up, and an investor in flexicap will always be at peace. Now, what do we learn from here? It's very clear multicaps are very volatile. They do great during the bull markets, but during the bear markets, they crash because of the mid cap and small cap component. And as an investor, if you're only investing in multicap and you feel great during the bull market, but during the bear market, how do you feel? Do you feel you made a mistake? Do you feel bad that, oh, flexi caps are doing well or my multi caps are not doing well? Then multi caps are not for you. Multi caps are for investors who are willing to take the risk and accept the volatility. They are okay to see volatility. If you cannot see volatility, if you cannot see the markets go up and down, then flexi caps are best for you, because flexi caps don't go high so much, and they also don't fall so much. Now, this is a major difference between a multi-cap and a flexi-cap. So while that was an insight in SIPs, the difference between multi-cap and flexi-cap, now we'll take a look at what happens when you invest lump sum. And this is going to give us some very different insight about both these funds, which will help you in making your decision in choosing the right funds or choosing the right category. Let's take a look at this Excel. So here is an Excel which shows if you had invested lump sum 10, 15, 20 years back, what would have the returns been like? So let's take a look. So here you've got Sundaram, Baroda, ICICI, Quant, Nippon. So these are the funds which have got 10 year, 15 year, and some have got 20 year. So let's stay focused on 10 and 15 years. So here you've got a 10-year return is around 14, 17, and then 15. So basically, if you have to just do a sorting, so you've got 13, 13, then 14, 14, 15, and Quant is the highest, which is 17, right? Now let's take a look at the 15-year data. So you've got 12, which is the lowest is 12, and then the highest is around 15.92. And for 20-year data, we've got from 11 to 15, right? The least performer in 20 years, Sundaram, has given around 12% and 15.75. So if you have to look at what happened to your 1 year, 1 lakh investment lump sum, what it would have given returns. So here, if you see close to 4 lakhs and 3.5 lakhs. So basically ranging from 3.5 to almost 5 lakhs. And here from 15 years, if you had invested a lakh, it would have been 5.75 lowest and highest would be 9.17. And 20 year 9.5 to 18, right? So this is about multi-cap. Now let's take a look at flexi-cap. Of course, we have far more funds here. But let's take a look at the returns here and find out what is the main difference here. Now, if you look at 5 years returns, UTI Flexi Cap, Shriram Flexi, PGIM, SBI, they've got 5, 8, 9, and the highest is 17. So average return is around 12%, lowest is 5.8, and then highest is 7.88. 10 year, if you look at the data, again, from 9.5 to 19, there is a gap of 10%. And 15 years, if we see 9.42 to 14.51. And here, 20-year data, you see here 9.65 to 16.54. So if you look at the main difference here, although the number of funds are more, the variation is quite high. So here you've got lowest and you've got highest. So the gap is quite wide. And let me show you in a chart for you to understand this, what I'm trying to convey. So here, if you see in the 10-year return, the average flexi cap is 13.47. We saw the range, the low and the high. There is a wide gap. But whereas we compare it with multi-cap, it is 14.81. Although the number of funds are less, but there is more consistency. They are closer to each other. Same in the 15-year, the average is 12.84 and the average is 14.76. Of course, as the number of years increase, because the fund size gets less, the gap is not much. But again, even here, the average of flexicap is less than the average of multicap. That tells that the returns are dispersed within flexicap category. And this chart also tells us something similar, but it shows us the gap. So this dark is the flexicap maximum and light is flexicap minimum. So 9.58 and 19.11. Whereas in multicap, the difference is less comparatively. So if you see here, the gap is quite wide, but here the gap is less. Same way here, this is the gap. And so here, if you see 14.2, there's a steep fall here, whereas here it is not as steep. So the difference here is 3.5, and here the difference is 5. Here again, the same story here. It's very steep. Here it is not steep. So if you look at the gap between the lowest performing fund and the highest performing fund is quite wide. So what does this tell us? This tells us that although multi-cap as a category is very volatile because of the mid-cap and the small-cap component, the same mid-cap and small-cap component, which is 25 large, 25 mid, and 25 small, it gives the stability to the fund category, which means there is more predictability within the category if you have to select funds. Whether you pick the lowest performing or the highest performing, the difference is not much. Whereas in FlexiCap, if you choose a wrong fund, you get penalized greater, because what matters in FlexiCap is the fund manager's skill. It's like a cricket team where most of them perform well. So there is more predictability in the results. You know that they will bat well, most of them bat well, most of them bowl well and field well, almost the same. So there is more predictability. But if you have a cricket team where there is very good batter and there's somebody who's very poor in batting but good in bowling, so the batting lineup is not so strong. What you need here is good captaining skills. And that is exactly what is happening in FlexiCap. You need a fund manager who can actually manage large, mid, and small cap, because there is no restriction. There is no fixed allocation. Whereas in a multi-cap, there is fixed allocation. The fund manager's ability only comes in picking stocks, not the allocation. And this difference causes this wide variation, which means if you are selecting a FlexiCap, you actually have to select the best fund from a wide range of funds. Now, if you look at both of them, multi-cap is highly volatile as a category. FlexiCaps are more stable, whereas selecting of funds, you have to be far more vigilant and careful when you select FlexiCap. So it's simple. My final take or verdict is that, number one, if you do not want to see volatility in your SIP when you invest in SIPs or lump sum, if you don't want to see variations, if you don't want to see huge volatility, go for FlexiCap. But you have to choose a good FlexiCap. Whereas in multi-cap, you'll see a lot of volatility, but you don't need to be really bothered about whether I've chosen the right fund, because the difference is not much. So as an investor, what you should do? First, find out what is your risk profile. If your risk tolerance is high, so I think getting into a multi-cap fund is no-brainer, because the predictability of returns is high because of the allocation. If your risk tolerance is low, don't go for multi-cap, go for a FlexiCap. Even if you get hit on the returns, you will be at peace. You will sleep well at night, especially when there's a war or when there is a crisis in the market, you will not be disturbed. So each of them have their own advantages. You decide what is best. So what's your decision? What's your choice? Let me know in the comments. Which one would you choose? And if you think this video has added value to you, in terms of insight, something new that you never knew, probably, please let me know in the comments. Give me a thumbs up. And if you are new to this channel and if you have not subscribed, to subscribe. My goal is to help young families make the right decisions with their mutual fund investing. I like to teach concepts and those tricks and tips. So, hoping to see you soon. Thank you for staying till the end. Bye for now.